Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's oil change day. That's right. Gonna get some new lube up in here. Okay, alright, it's a little more than an oil change. We're gonna be swapping out the oil pan today. Got this off Rock Auto for about 40 bucks. She looks pretty fresh, huh? Even comes with an unstripped bolt. Well, actually I haven't tested on it yet, so that might change. We'll see. Probably should have done this a long time ago, I know. When I bought the Jeep, we had the rust starting, so it'll be nice to get it out. A lot of guys say they have a hard time getting this thing out, so we'll see. I don't think it should be that tough. Put her up on jack stands, but didn't take the tires off, as you can see. So we're just gonna run it, see what happens, and maybe I'll eat my words. I think this won't be so bad, but it'll be cool to see what's in the pan, and maybe take a look at the bearings too, since we did have that bunch of water in the system before. So. Alright, well, I'll bring you along for the ride here. Alright, so we got started here, started loosening up a few bolts. There's a few bracketry thingy-majiggies on here, holding up some of the lines here. Ugh. Tell you what, it's going to be a miracle if I don't end up breaking one of these rusty lines here, but we'll just continue breaking the brackets and hope the lines don't break. I haven't squirted any lube on much of this except the brackets, and I'm gonna let them soak up and get our courage up to go get the bolts behind the collector over there. Alright, we finally got this sucker out. All the bolts were grimy and gross, and a bunch of them were hard to get to, but nothing too miserable. A couple in the back here were blocked by this, plastic bit, and you just, take a flathead and break that in half and rip it out, and then you can finally get to the bolts, and they're good. I recommend, oh yeah, just so you know, these two bolts and a couple of the other suckers are about 13 millimeter, and the rest are 11, so have fun figuring that out when you're half under there and lost your 13 millimeter, don't know where you are, you're dizzy. So anyways, once you get the pan off, it's always good to inspect and make sure you've got enough metal shavings in there so you know that somebody's been driving this good. And as you can see, I pulled out all the metal shavings and played with them a little bit, rubbed them between my fingers, because that's what you gotta do. And then once you get bored with that, you start cleaning up. So we're gonna go and clean up and get this new pan in there. Alright, here we are looking up the 4-liter skirt. When I first got this thing and I had the cracked head and I never worked on any vehicles before, I was really worried about it, and the bearing clearances and my oil pressure and all that. So I always wondered what it looked like down here, and I always kind of dreamed about taking the pan off and opening up one of these bearing caps and seeing what it looked like. But now looking at it, just looks like a lot of work, so I think I'm just gonna throw the pan back on and pretend I looked. Plus, there's all that metal in the pan. I have a feeling if I take one of these caps off, the bearing's just gonna crumble in my hands, and I don't have any replacements, so I'm not gonna be pulling the engine or anything. Gotta drive this home in about an hour, so yeah, right. We're not getting this thing on in an hour, but yeah, so now we know what it looked like, and can put some pants back on the girl. I went around and I wiped down the gasket surface there with a rag, and I think that's about all the prep I'm gonna do. And we're gonna throw the Fel-Pro on there and struggle bus with this for another 30 minutes. So maybe you'll see us struggling here in a minute. Alright, well, we got everything lined up here. The Fel-Pro gasket comes with these little clip-on things. So you screw these into the 4 13 millimeter bolt holes, and then you can ride up the gasket until it clicks in. So you can imagine the gasket just suspended up there, and then you drive home the oil pan. Now, these are nifty half the time, and half the time they're, man, that's pretty blue, huh? Blue on blue on blue. Anyways, so they're nifty half the time, but when you end up jamming this thing forward, I don't know why I'm so zoomed in, when you end up jamming it forward, it kind of comes into contact with these. So I ended up pulling them, but I was really glad to have them in the back, because this thing is just jangling around, and being one person, it's really nice to be able to even push the pan up, and then the pan clicks in too. So in the back, these are still in, they're not in the front, but I'll be able to line these up, and instead of just jamming these up, I'm just going to start threading the bolts in loose, and then I'll go around and tighten them again. Not really hard to get in and out. Of course, like I struggled a little bit with the gasket. It was pretty tight in there. I had to wedge it out. And then it was just mostly muscle, and you had to really just kind of pull it. It's really wedged between the starter over there and the exhaust. So you just kind of gotta muscle it and mind the lines, especially if they're as rusty as mine. But yeah, not too bad. And then just jamming it in, you just kind of spank the behind so it moves forward and then up, and hopefully you line up and don't break those plastic things off in the block. You don't want to have to deal with that. Cool. Alright, bolt time. Alright, she's all tightened up. Looks probably exactly the same. But now we got a nice shiny new pan down there. I only got splattered RTV over some of it. Only scratched it once. I don't have any advice for you really, except you'll figure it out if you're doing this job. Just a combination of different extensions and shallow and deep sockets, and you'll get it. It's kind of like the valve cover gasket in that way, where there's some of these short ones and some long bolts. Doesn't really matter where they go unless there's an accessory hanging off it, but you don't really need those anyways. Alright, I think we'll add the oil and then we'll start her up. Alright, today's flavor, we're putting in some Rotella Tango Fiber. Didn't have enough of that though, so topped her off with a little $2 chuck, you know. They both have the shell on it, so it should be good. Just let her drain a little bit, check it. I think that'll be enough. Don't need to add a little extra because I reuse the oil filter. Whoops. I got an order coming, but shipping slow these days. Alright, we're gonna start her up. Let's start her up. Yeah. Oil pressure. That's good. Check for some leaks here. Alright, we're in business. Alright, just taking a look at the old oil pan here. As you can see, there's a bunch of schmuck and rust going on. Inside doesn't look too bad though, so probably would have lasted a couple more weeks. Not a bad job. I think if I can do it, you can do it. As long as you have a lift, you know. I think mine measures about 4.5 in the front, maybe. Oh no, 4 in the front, 4.5 in the back, whatever. About 4 inches up there, do you good. I just put the jack stands right behind the front tires there, jacked it up as far as my jack would let me, and just zipped it out the back there. So that's how you do it. I did not disconnect the starter, I didn't disconnect squat, so I don't think you really have to. I did let the axle droop all the way down. I left the tires on, but they were just barely touching the ground, and yeah, I didn't have to use the jack or nothing. There is this weird piece I'll point out that goes on the back here, so don't be like me and not realize that you should probably install that, but you know, who really needs that piece? I don't think you need it that bad. So yeah, it goes right up in there. So if it turns out the internet says I really need it, maybe I'll think about putting it back there, but I don't know. What do you think? I don't really feel like crawling back under there. Anyways, guys, that'll do it for today. If you like the video, go ahead and like and subscribe. Let me know what you want to see on this puppy. I know I owe you guys a walk around, so I'll do that soon. Alright. Keep safe and keep jeeping, guys. Take it easy.